Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Civil Discourse. We've decided to break from our original format to bring you a new type of discussion. Today I'm sitting down with Charlotte Henry and Avery Richardson, two members of YAF, and Caroline Osborne and Michael Sweeney, two members of YDP. Civil Discourse wanted to sit down with these student leaders to discuss Potomac's political environment, which is widely regarded as unproductive. The hope is that through today's discussion, we can gain some perspectives from the school members who are active in politics and provide solutions to improve the culture of the school. With that, I'll ask the first question. For YAF, do you feel that conservative viewpoints are marginalized at our school? And if so, elaborate.
I mean, yeah, 100%. I feel like our school generally is geared to more of like a liberal opinion. And like every time I guess there's like conversations or big events happen, I feel like teachers generally take a more liberal stand. So like if you were to speak up in class, I know like a lot of conservatives won't really share their opinion because they're kind of scared of like their teacher not liking them anymore. Which I think is another thing like harming kind of like our political environment because the students are scared to like even express their opinion and like they can even have like a productive conversation, but they're scared to even start it.
Yeah, I think very much so, especially because of like the sheer numbers, because seem to be a lot more people who are liberal at this school that like my parents have warned me that I shouldn't speak my viewpoints in class specifically because they don't want my teachers to view me differently. And same with my peers, that it's more likely that people will see you in a very negative light as a whole person because of your specific viewpoints. So people are worried about being their true selves and at this school especially, so they aren't as eager to have political discussions.
Yeah, I mean, there's just like a lot of prejudice going into it. Like I feel like once you find out someone's like conservative, you're like, oh, and you like automatically have all these assumptions, which is something like I'm gonna try to like destigmatize, but like again, like having more of these conversations, I feel like would be really beneficial.
Same question for the YDP members. Do you feel that liberal viewpoints are marginalized at all at school?
I personally don't feel like liberal viewpoints are marginalized. I think that teachers and a lot of the students, like, we want to have healthy debates and we want to learn from each other, whether it's like a radical liberal or like leftist view or a more like moderate and centrist one. So I feel comfortable speaking out and having conversations with people that like whose views don't align with mine perfectly, but we can like learn from each other through discussion.
Yeah, for sure. I think like this school is leaning toward like a moderate liberal stance, and I think there are views from both sides, but I do think Republican views will get like more stigmatized, like, oh, they're automatically racist or whatever, which is not like which shouldn't happen. Personally, like I will like have different viewpoints with conservatives in general, but there are like conservative views that I definitely agree with, and like I think it's really important to acknowledge both sides, and I don't think necessarily that liberal views are censored, but I do think maybe some topics are like more sensitive, but not necessarily like liberal views in general are not marginalized whatsoever.
But I do want to add that like I agree with you that conservative views do tend to be a little bit more silenced in the Potomac community. However, I think if you're educated on the things you're talking about, people want to hear what you have to say, conservative or liberal. Mm-hmm. And it does frustrate me on both sides. I'm not like targeting you guys or anything, but like on both sides when people kind of claim that they're being silenced, because usually I would say it tends to be that they said something that came from a more uneducated, like not as well read on the topic place. And in that case, I think it's totally reasonable for somebody to kind of shut it down and be like, make sure you know what you're talking about before you speak on it.
And now I'll kind of go off script here, but are there any specific issues that you guys feel like you guys on both sides cannot talk to the other side about? Like any hot button topics?
Yeah. I feel like some big ones are definitely like abortion. I know that one is just like avoided like the Black Plague. Because I think there's like a lot of feelings mixed in that one. That's just like it's messy. And then what else? Like gun laws. I feel like that one's very touchy, and I think like
I think one of the main issues is that people view all conservatives just by saying you're conservative. People think that you are like racist, homophobic, all of those things, when there really is no backing behind those claims. So I think that just the issue of that perception is something that's difficult to talk about.
Yeah.
And like same thing for you guys. Any issues that you just feel like you cannot talk about?
I mean, within like, I don't know, like liberal, even within like the liberal, not even against conservatives. Like I think like Palestine and Israel is like a really taboo topic. Like I know like some people have really extreme views on it. And personally I don't. Like I'm not like educated enough to have like a super like extreme opinion on it, but I just think that's like something that's like a lot of people tread lightly around. I don't know. I mean, do you have anything else?
No, I agree with that. I think that probably more than anything else. And I think for everyone on both sides, I think anything like with race relations is always a little bit like difficult to talk about. And I agree with Avery that a lot of times conservatives are labeled automatically as racist, but I do think it's important to acknowledge that there are a lot of racist people on both sides, and in order to not be racist, you have to actively be like anti-racist, which is a really difficult thing, like that takes practice. And to say that only one side is racist, I think is really just kind of not acceptable, and it's there's so much more to it. And I don't know, I think it's important to recognize that like there are so many racist people, and it's not that difficult to be racist.
You know, I completely agree. I feel like the term like being a racist, like when you call someone that just because like that's where they align politically, I feel like that's just like such a big word to use, and I think it's like really damaging to a lot of people too. Because I guess they start to like think about themselves and think about like, I don't know, maybe it could be a good thing though too, like maybe like recognizing that there's some people in your party that might like act on racist tendencies, but to like kind of address that and like see what you can do to like help stop that.
Yeah, but I honestly don't even see like labeling someone as racist as all that damaging. I think that like racism and like calling someone racist needs to be like, I hate this word, but like it needs to be normalized, because I think, like I said, it's not that difficult to be racist and say racist things. And I think for people to have such a visceral reaction to you calling them racist, I think that that's pretty damaging, and it stops the conversation because people get defensive if you call them racist. So I think people need to be a little bit more comfortable with like being called that, and then taking a step back and addressing what it was that got them that label.
I think a lot of times it's not on purpose. Like it's, people don't actively try to be racist. It's like a genuine accident. People need to kind of understand that people are trying their best sometimes.
I agree with you saying like if people actually like do something that's racist and maybe they don't even know, I think it's good to call them out because they need to realize like that's not okay, even if like they didn't really know what they were doing. It was like unintentional, but I feel like if nobody has even done anything and just because they're associated with a party and they're called a racist because of that, I feel like that's wrong. So I guess they start to like just think about their party and like think negatively about it, and like I don't know. I just think if you haven't done anything that's racist, like it's not good to call someone racist for that.
All right, so how would you all characterize the dynamic of political conversations with people on the other side? Are they generally more respectful or more hostile?
I've like sadly have lost relationships with extended family members because of harmless political conversations that ended up just changing the viewpoints of each other, which is very sad. But I think that just on both sides, one issue is a lot of times the conversations are pretty hostile because neither side really wants to change their viewpoint and is really open to changing their viewpoint. So it's not a conversation, it's more of an argument and a fight and accusing each other of issues rather than trying to better both sides of the argument. And so I think that it's important to make it more of a discussion and less of a fight.
Yeah, I don't think like you should like have to change your opinion necessarily when listening to someone.
Be open about it.
Yeah, I just think like being open and like having the floor to explain yourself and maybe try to understand the other side more, I think that's really important. Like that's like what we're all aiming for, I think, here. It's just like understanding the other side more and like making them less of like an enemy or like trying to get into fights.
What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think, you know, like I think the conversations do need to be less hostile because it's like like you're not getting any productivity out of like hostile conversations. Like I think it's good, like there's a difference. Like one of my family members is like extreme like far right person who was like, and I just cannot have political conversations. But if you're like if you just have conservative views and you're not like whatever having extreme views, and same with like liberal people with extreme views, like I think it's definitely, you can have a productive conversation.
I agree with all of that, but like going a little bit further, I also think it's important that if a political view is kind of attacking someone, like the type of person they are based on like sexuality, gender, race, I think that we need to stop labeling those people as sensitive if they choose to not associate with somebody who's expressed a view that's like inherently anti them for whatever they are. But yeah, like I do agree with that, but I also just think that calling people like sensitive or snowflakes or whatever, if like they get rightfully so offended by something like that, I think that name calling needs to stop. Definitely.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Like there are people that like I'm bi or whatever, and there are people that I don't associate with. Like on both sides, like whatever. Like just because of that, like it shouldn't be politicized. Like whether you support like some community or not. Like you know, like that just shouldn't be a political thing.
Now, like, what do you guys think, like, within your own, like, with people who, like, have the same ideology? Do you think, like, even then, do you guys struggle to find common ground? Or is it, it might be less so, but do you guys find that?
If we look at recent events in politics and the whole Capitol and, like, how, like, all the Trump Republicans went in there and really just, I don't know, it was, like, a huge disgrace to, like, our party. Like, I feel like watching that, I was scared for what was going to happen with Republicans because, like, I think there's clearly a divide happening, and I think it's happening on the liberal side, too. Like, there's the more radical people are kind of like all banding together, and then there's like the more moderates who like don't really know what to do. I feel like yeah, because they just don't really like associate with that like hardcore like I don't know, like the whole Trump thing was just really crazy to me. Like it really kind of was like kind of like an awakening moment. I feel like just like watching how that like was loud and like really like I mean it scared me.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I think that even on like a fundamental level with like Trump, there was a divide between lots of Republicans of people who do support and do not support Trump, because like I personally supported Trump even after all of the incidents with the Capitol. I always have and will, and I stand by my beliefs very firmly, but there's a lot of people who do not, but that doesn't mean that we still overall have the foundation of the same beliefs generally. So there's common ground, but also differences that we notice within each other, and that you have to accept about one another and like see why they think that, but then also be open to having a normal productive conversation about it.
I mean, I think I like generally agreed with Trump's like policies. And then after the Capitol, I feel like that really changed. Like I just started not to like him, and I think that was because of how he let those like literally like terrorist acts happen. And like even like he could have had the opportunity to be like, no, like this wasn't okay. Like I didn't like this, but instead he kind of like praised them for like destroying such important property, and like it was like really just a huge threat to democracy. And I feel like once that happened, I just couldn't respect him anymore. I couldn't support him because like that was just so against even like Republican and conservative ideals.
Really quick, I do just kind of disagree with the notion that these like Trump Republicans that stormed the Capitol and like the GOP have a similar like basis of beliefs. I don't think they do at all. For example, like a fundamental belief of Republicans is like smaller government, more like local state government power, I guess, over national or federal government power. And that's like those people were anarchists. They were anti-government. They supported Donald Trump. They didn't support the United States at all. And other big things like the idea of patriotism, like to the GOP, that's really important. These people are not patriots. They're pro-Trump, and that's it. So I completely disagree that there's any common ground at all. And if anything, I think that's more of like a nod to the actual, like the true Republican, that they are not and can't be grouped in with the Trump. I don't even want to call them the Trump Republicans, but like a Trumper, I guess, you know.
Yeah, because it's not all Trump supporters, it's just the extremists. Because I think like there's plenty of people who don't have that extreme value who support Trump.
Now, kind of going off that, do you think you could reconcile your beliefs with like a Trump, an initial like Trump supporter who's like pro their policies, but anti what the Capitol stood for? Do you think you can reconcile your beliefs to like agree to disagree, or do you think that's like something that's too big of a divide?
Well, like that's me. Like
That's what I'm saying. Like, what do you guys think?
Oh, okay.
Well, like to a degree, I mean, I do of course hate the idea of like not liking someone based on their politics. And I know this is something that's like been said a lot recently, but I do really believe that at this point in time, politics is really personal. It's not just about economic policy, and it's not about like immigration and healthcare, whatever. It's about like like the humanity of people and the people that you choose to respect. And yes, I don't, it's hard because I don't want to say like I don't like you if you voted for Trump or anything, but it's hard for me to respect beliefs that like Trump's stance on like I guess like race relations and just like everything in that realm. It's hard for me to respect your beliefs if that wasn't a deal breaker for you.
I think one thing that's really sad is how at this age when you're growing up and people like will post things that it's like, if you support this person, I generally like don't talk to me, like we can't be friends. Because I think although like you don't have to be friends with everyone, you don't have to like necessarily respect their ideas, but the idea to think that they're an awful person because of their beliefs, I think is a little extreme, and something that like at this age shouldn't be your whole character, and it shouldn't be you shouldn't see someone as a whole person based off of their overall political beliefs.
I mean, yeah, I think social media has played a huge role like recently, and I think it's good and bad. I mean, there's good ways to like get messages out and to spread things and like make sure things are known about. But then also again, there's like that attacking side of the media. I feel like that's just really detrimental. And a lot of things they choose to put in, like there's like clips of all these political figures, like it could be like one moment or like really taken out of context and you just wouldn't know. So I mean, it's hard for people to like see like what's actually real and what's not, which I think is like really detrimental to like developing your own political like ideas, and yeah, because they might just be like completely skewed.
No, I definitely agree with the media piece. I think reliable information is so important. It's a foundation of like making your beliefs, but there's like another side to it. Like who's the lady, the congresswoman who said that like forest fires were started by Jewish lasers or something like that. Like her, like I'm sorry, if you genuinely support her and she's like saying that, like that's no. But like I think I can. There's some, but like I don't know. It just I feel like I understand. Like I hope it wouldn't come to like cutting someone out of your life because of your political beliefs, because that just shouldn't happen. But some instances I do understand, because say you're like, or whatever, I'll just like say so you're like supporting someone who has like very anti like black people or LGBTQ people like rights, and you're a part of those communities, then it's like, well, you don't support me having rights. Why would I be friends with you then if you don't think like people like me shouldn't have that, like shouldn't have the right to get married or should be whatever, you know. Yeah.
If you like John Kasich or Mitt Romney, okay.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I think if you like Trump and Pence, who supports conversion therapy, I think that's a totally different story. And it will be much harder for me to respect you and your beliefs and where you're coming from, because you do not respect not even other people's beliefs, but other people.
I think that's not every person, because I support Trump and I'm not like against certain communities.
Yeah, but you're kind of actively helping their oppression.
I guess that's just one thing that we'll have to disagree on.
We hope you enjoyed part 1 of the YAF and YDP interview. Please be on the lookout for part 2, in which we delve deeper into Potomac's political climate. Thanks for watching.